Oh. Oh man. I debated even having this stream right now. Do I look do I look old? Man, I look old. I look old. Man. You don't look older than 50. Well, thank you. I'm not sure that's supposed to be a. Thank you, I guess. Thank you for that. You don't look older than 50. That's good. What up, nutritionalist? How's it going? I kind of actually almost didn't stream today. I was just. This whole week I was just kind of feeling. I don't know. I guess a little out of it. It's just kind of like, oh, well, this is happening now. Thing everybody was like, yep, that's what's gonna happen. We're just gonna bomb Iran and have no plan of action as to what to do after that. And sure enough, we're in deep doo doo. We have no fucking plan. I mean, it's almost kind of like they believed in the smell of their own farts. You ever guys ever follow baseball at all? Anyone here follow baseball? It was good while it lasted. In the end, it doesn't even matter, right? Did you guys follow baseball? Roger Clemens, during that whole, you know, everyone was taking steroids, blah, blah, blah. And, this is like 10, 15 years ago. When Roger Clemens was in the conversation of taking steroids. Like everyone was taking steroids pretty much, but like it was like, oh no, how could you accuse Roger Clemens or whatever? And then like he came out with this whole sort of like George Bush esque or like Nixon or like Clinton. I did not have sexual or like a total flat out denial like um read my lips, no new taxes, that sort of shit, like a politician. And he's like, I didn't take steroids, I didn't take whatever, blah blah blah. Well, the thing about Roger Clemens was that when he made his statements, it'd be very like that, it'd be very political, it'd be very I did not have sexual or it basically be like deny deny deny, that's a decent strategy if there's no actual smoking gun, right? I forgot how it came out, but eventually like nobody believed him, but he kept sticking to his guns to the end. I don't think he ever admitted doing steroids. I don't know if he's in the Hall of Fame anymore or if he was in the Hall of Fame. Let me see actually. Here's Roger Clemens. He is not in the Hall of Fames. Despite being one of the most dominant pitchers in MLB history with 354 wins and a record 7 Cy Young awards, he was denied entry in his latest attempt in December 2025. receiving fewer than 5 votes. So, although he told a good story. Wait, did he ever admit? Roger Clemens has never admitted to taking steroids. He has consistently denied all allegations. He said, in 2008, let me be clear, I have never used steroids or HGH. The trainer said he did. Accused of lying to Congress, Clemens was found not guilty on all charges of perjury. So, although he was never prosecuted for lying, and in the court of law, he's innocent. How's it going, Holy Cow? Checking SAR. But I guess the baseball writers, the people all pretty much believe that he did it's not technically the court of law, but the court of, I guess, baseball writers and whatever, they basically think he did the deed. But it got to me thinking, I was thinking about that because, I was kind of into baseball during that time. And I remember, talking to some Roger Clemens fans, whatever. Everyone was like, yeah, he probably did it, whatever. But it was kind of weird because, it almost felt like when Clemens was saying, I didn't do it, whatever. It almost felt like it was a little surreal because it was like, everyone knows you did it. Even the fans think you did it. Even your fans think you did it. There's so much evidence to the contrary here. What is the point of denying it, right? At this point, right? But I guess, just in case that I guess whatever fan or whatever out there would have been, I guess devastated over the news of his hero being kind of like a, fake, a phony, I guess, or whatever. I guess that's for that. But I remember it almost felt like he believed in his own lie, right? It's almost like he was lying to himself in real time and that he was believing in his own lie, being like, yeah, I didn't do it. It was B12. I was getting shots of B12 and lidocaine in my ass. They're all lying. Everyone else was doing. Yeah, maybe everyone else was doing, but me, I was the only clean one out there with 354 wins. Pitching in my 40s. It was all natural. B12. It's kind of like that. It's kind of like that with our boomers. And not that, I don't know if Roger Clemens is a boomer. I think he's let's see. Actually, is he? I don't think so. I think he's a little younger. Yeah, he's 62. I think boomer is I guess technically maybe he's a boomer. 45. I think it's 45 to 64. So technically he might be in that. He's on the cusp of Gen X and boomer, whatever. But anyway, boomers or, even older than that, I guess, silent generation, they kind of exist in this world where the world has not changed in the past 30, 40 years. And, it's just kind of for the longest time, they could just make up their own reality as to what happened. That's what the CIA did, right? All the time. It's just this is what happened. And, 20, 30 years later, they might come out with a redacted file that kind of suggests that it didn't happen that way. But, it's 30 years later, so who cares about it now, right? But that was what they did all the time. They would deny something, and then maybe like in some, unredacted file, like 30 years later, when everyone was dead, that mattered. Then they'd come out with the truth. So that was their mode of kind of like operating, right? These boomers, the silent generation, people who were born in that era. This is how like the American kind of narrative was shaped. And so when you believe in the smell your own farts that much, right? Like American exceptionalism, and we're here to spread democracy. Like, so I feel like some of the people in Congress and like the older people, not maybe the younger people who are just psychopaths, but the older people who are also psychopaths, but just like stupider psychopaths, right? They actually believe that they're spreading democracy or liberating people. Some of them probably even like actually lie to themselves so much they think that that's what they're actually doing. And I think like that's also kind of like what's happening now, where at first it's like, is bombing Iran a good idea? Well, and then they spread all that fucking retarded nonsense about, liberating Iranian women. All the fucking feminist voids came out. The geopolitical voids. It's just funny because, like, seeing the way they all come out like that, it's just like, these are all bots. Like, bots, not like a fucking robot, not like an AI fucking thing, but like, when I mean bots, I mean like, these are all accounts that are managed by CIA agents or FBI agents or whatever the entire time. Like, they'll be fucking tweeting about nonsense, right? For the longest time, they'll probably copy a bunch of like other stupid, nonsensical. They'll go into all these subcultures. Like a lot of them will go into K-pop, right? Obviously, because K-pop is so, I guess, viral and whatever. Or they'll go into anime. They'll go into these kind of like spaces and pose as like these subculture, whatever. They'll gain a lot of following or whatever, and they'll gain whatever. They'll have all these accounts that kind of parrot each other or boost each other and all this other fucking bullshit nonsense. And then when the time is right, when there's a fucking thing to promote or when there's a thing to fucking confuse the masses with, they'll have these fucking big accounts now. K-pop account with, or they won't even need a big account. What they'll need is just like all of them to be coordinated and say the same fucking bullshit. Like all these K-pop avatar people all of a sudden being Iranian feminists. It's like I'm sorry, but as popular as K-pop is, it's not really known for having a big fan base in Iran. Nor is it like, Iranian feminists. So it's just very clear now that these accounts that have been posing as, stan accounts and whatever, they're also all like goy slop fed accounts as well. Like everything on the internet is just fucking. That's why I kind of gave. I don't know. This past week I've been online, but I haven't been on as online as I have been. It's just kind of like, binge watched like these TV shows, like Veronica Mars or Veronica Mars. What's the other one? Oh yeah, Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I never watched the Brooklyn Nine-Nine seasons after COVID, or 2019, I guess, and kind of glad I didn't now because they suck. I mean, one is like directly about BLM, whatever. But Veronica Mars is interesting because like it was a show about high school, kind of like around the time I was in high school, a little after, but mostly still the same kind of stuff. It It was like the time when the internet was starting to become a thing, but wasn't ubiquitous yet. Um, and I guess like the reason I've been just binge watching that this past week and not really going online much is because it's just like it reminds me of a time when like information flow used to be a little bit more authentic, even on the internet. And on the internet now, it's just like all this fucking slop, you know. And I try to make, content myself, like my fucking treatise on Goyslop, last month now. And it just feels like, just feels like Sisyphus, You're just a boulder against all this fucking slop that's just rolling down on you. And you're like, what's the point? There's just so much slop. It's impossible to cut through the noise because they've engineered all the fucking solves, You know what I mean? Is anyone out there even? Am I just rambling to myself? That's why I made this episode titled Band-Aid Peeling. Unfortunately there's no other use for the goy slop than just fucking catalyzing the masses. Oh God. It's just like, and I feel like, jumping on the backs of what I said last time, about self-crit, right? I feel like the problem with America in general is that there is no self-crit. And that's by design. That's like I said before, like with Roger Clemens or the CIA or America in general, America's boomers. The strategy, Bill Clinton, whatever, everything was just to deny. Everything was just to deny. Because if you didn't deny, then the other side would pick up on that and ruin your political career, I guess, or whatever. That's why, Nixon, I am not a crook, etc., etc., even though we all know that CIA probably planned it so they would have him dead to rights. But yeah, it's just like, because we've been doing it this way for so long because it's always been like, we are the best, we're Americans, we're exceptional, and that's why we're American. It's like, no, you dumb fucks. It's not because you are exceptional, it's because you fucking killed people and enslaved them and figured out how to like enslave everyone who came here. Like, everyone had their time of being enslaved a little bit, the English. No, not, well, I guess, yeah, even the English, right? The fucking it wasn't even like that great of a deal being a colonizer, right? Compared to being like an aristocratic British landowner. You had to go all the way across the world to make your oats, right? And leave everything behind, etc., etc. Sometimes you didn't survive because the land wasn't as easy to till. But yeah, once the black people did all that work and tilled the land, and once you cleared out all the Native Americans, and then decided, oh, it's illegal for black people to be slaves. Well, now you created this wage slavery thing where the Irish and Chinese people can come do more of the work. So on and so forth. Everyone has their slavery day on the sun in this country. But everyone came to this country to make money, right? That was the real true, I guess, foundational myth of this country. It wasn't to protect freedom or spread freedom or protect democracy or fight fascism. Those were never the intended goals of this country. The intended goal of this country was to come here and make a lot of fucking money, right? That's why, I don't know. I don't know how America's going to improve, but I do know that everyone came here to make money, right? So then anything that's counterposed to that is basically antithetical to the reason they're here, right? So if you think about it like that, right? Like there's no real patriotic reason to be an American, right? There's no real like culture here, right? Culture is built out of necessity, right? There's no necessity in America's existence, or like their raison d'etre was never a necessity thing. It was more of like a, it was literally, hey, how do we make more money, right? That was the English reason. That was the British reason for having these colonies in the first place, right? It's like, hey, those Dutch people, they know how to trade. They know how to trade a lot better than us. How do we overtake them? Well, we don't have their networks, but we can improve our production capabilities by having all these colonies, right? So then, if everyone knows that American culture is just about making money, that's what we're all here for, right? Then we could stop all this fucking, like denial. First denial of that, right? But I guess also the denial, we could stop the denial that this country is some sort of like no. That's not what this country is about. This country is about integrity. It's about democracy. It's about all these ideals of 1776 that were unrealized. That was the true identity of America. And that is the true identity of America. All these fucking, we need to give up these highfalutin fucking things and be real, right? Like even the America 100 years ago, the reason why it was winning, not just against communism or whatever, but against the other imperialist countries, was because at the end of the day they were like, we're here to make money, right? Ford, he was like, we're here to fucking make some cars, we're here to build shit, we're here to do stuff, but we're also here to make some fucking money, right? But then, back then, they were honest about it, right? They weren't like, oh, we're here because America fights for democracy. America, blah, blah, blah. No, nobody fucking said that shit. All right? Nobody fucking believed that shit back then, 1926, 100 years ago. It was a fucking roaring 20s. Everyone was like, we're here to make fucking money. You know, at least people were honest back then. At least people were honest. They were like, yeah, we didn't leave the fucking potato famine in Ireland because, you know, because we loved American culture. You know, we loved the idea of, no, we needed to escape that fucking famine to make some fucking money so we don't die. That's what we needed to do. You know? And it's just like this whole country, you know, that's the general basis of what this country is. And if you don't start from that first principle, it's just like you just fucking jibber jabber over fucking nonsense, right? You have the right wing being like, well, there are too many immigrants and blah, blah, blah. And the Jews are bringing in immigrants and that's why the Jews are bad. And it's like, okay. So what if the Jews never existed and there'd be Asian Americans still here anyway and you would be crushed by them? You know, they just don't have they have no answer for like simple rebuttals because they're the way they see things is very one-dimensional, right? They're always like, "Oh yeah, you know, Eileen Gu took our facilities and our things and like, you know, in actuality, America built China, right?" It's like, what? How does that? So, Eileen is taking money from a country that can afford to give it to her. See, let's say America was still richer than China, right? And it was America instead who was like, "Hey, Eileen, we'll throw you know, X amount of dollars your way if you represent America," and she chose to do that, none of them would be like, blah, 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 blah. They'd all be a bunch of fucking hypocrites. What's up, Wi-Fi? All the goys need to check in. And it just goes to show, like, when I'm seeing all this fucking slop, right? When I'm seeing all this fucking cattle slop on the internet, goy cattle Nazis, goy cattle Trotskyites, goy cattle Islamists, you know. You know, the goy cattle Islamists who are all like, "Oh, Hitler was right," etc., etc. I'm like, shut the fuck up. You're just the goy cattle. You're just additional goy cattle. And it all comes from the idea that, you know, it all comes from this idea. Like, all of, like, fucking American politics comes from this fundamental idea that America is like a moral force for good, you know? Like, that is the cognitive dissonance that I think, like, you know how they say, like, you know, I don't know, just even the very idea that, let's say in 2100, right? By the end of the century. Sup, D. Wallace? How's it going? Let's say by 2100, right? There's a communist revolution around the world, and we are all, you know, one happy communist world. There's no more wars over imperialism anymore. All right, imagine that in 2100, right? It's not perfect society yet, right? We're still developing the force of production, but we are at least past capitalism now. There's no whatever, right? Just imagine that. Okay. Now, when you're imagining this scenario, was there a peaceful transition for the United States into this new paradigm, or was there a violent one? You know, I feel like even forgetting all the mainstream Americans, right? Just forget all of them, even forget all the leftists. Just even the very small amount of people that call themselves Marxist Leninists in America, right? They probably still can't imagine a world in 2100 where America is not the leader, or at least one of the leaders, in a new kind of like society, like a new kind of global society, right? They could not fathom the idea of like even just 74 years later in 2100, like the idea that America will not be, not saying that America won't be relevant. I'm not going to go that far, right? I'm not going to say that they're not going to be like anything at all. They're going to be completely like America's going to be completely gone, and so that would be a little bit much of a thing. But just because we've been on top, right? Ever since most of us have been alive, right? Most Americans have been alive. In reality, that's only happened for 80 something 1 years, right? Sup, new page? How's it going? So, this new paradigm is only really 81 years old. This paradigm of us being on top and kind of like unquestioningly. And it's starting to unravel right now. So, the idea that we could no longer be on top in 76 years, it's not really out of the stretch. Not only that, like, not just not on top, but like maybe even balkanized, maybe even whatever. You know, nobody fucking knows what's gonna happen in 76 years. I feel like our entire lives, especially, well, I guess I'm speaking for millennials or older millennials, but our entire lives we've kind of been, Americans have been kind of been spoiled, right? They live in this reality where America being on top and being secure and being, Pax Americana, that's just kind of taken for granted, you know, right? So much so that, you know, an obvious false flag planned attack on our World Trade Center is taken to be one of the worst things ever, right? One of the worst things ever that could happen to us was something that was likely planned by us, but that's for a different conversation. But that's the general thing, right? And then if you even want to go further back, right? Pearl Harbor, for example, that wasn't even a state back then. Hawaii was a state in 1959. It was just really a military outpost in 1941. Really, the last time we were attacked on American soil was what? Probably like 1812? And like for real? And so like most Americans Like even the ones that are the most, you know, anti-imperialist or whatever, they just can't like, yeah, they can't like even conceptually understand that they are the bad guys, if that makes sense. Like you said, like, are we the bad guys? Are we the baddies? You know, they made a joke about that, right? With that TV show, that BBC TV show about the Nazis, and then one of them being like, "Are we the baddies?" Like, we joke about that, but then it's like, you know, it's funny because like the more I read about the Nazis, it was like the German public knew that did not like them once they actually got into like war with whatchamacallit, war with the USSR. That was like, God, can we not? The whole popularity with the whole reason why Hitler was popular in Germany before that was because he was getting all these gains without war. But when the war actually started, they were like, "Oh shit, you wanted us to actually get into the fucking war now." And then of course, it was massive fucking propaganda or whatever. Um, but yeah, you know, we joke about that. We joke about the German public being like, or I guess people in the SS or whatever being like, "Are we the baddies?" And like, you know, I'm just kind of like, I feel like the average American just doesn't even understand, like, just doesn't even understand like the depravity of this country. You know, they think like, oh yeah, you know, I mean, I guess we were kind of bad, but you know, we kind of got over that. You know. Anyway, was Franco based for supporting Cuba? I don't know. I don't know too much about that, so I can't comment. If America is no longer on top, which country will the capital owners flee to? Well, the capital owners, they've already got fucking assets all around the world. The real people behind the we're getting a conspiracy theory ish into conspiracy theory territory. They've already got shit all around the world. They'll be fine. Um, they might not have the existence they once had, but they will. Yeah, there will always be contingencies, unfortunately. That's why I say, you know, in 2100, it's not like America's going to disappear, right? Probably just won't exist in the form that we're familiar with today. Um, I feel like, you know, for most of our lives, right, it's been that time when it's like, you know, what does Lennon say? When sometimes, you know, decades happen in weeks and weeks happen in decades. I think for most of our lives, it's been kind of just weeks happening in decades, except for the past 5 years. Now there's centuries happening in 5 years, I guess. That would be the equivalent. Millennia. Millennia happening in centuries happening in the past few weeks. I don't know. I mean, coming to some sort of showdown. I just feel like I feel like there's some sort of showdown. You know what it feels like? It feels like you guys ever been to a rave? And I feel like this war or this past week has been the start of the beat kind of like accelerating, and then we're at the but the beat doesn't drop ever, and we're all waiting for the bass to drop, but we're like, oh fuck, do we want the bass drop? I don't think we want the bass drop, but it's gonna drop sometime soon. It's not dropping now. What the fuck's gonna happen? I have this anxiety because it's not dropping yet, but we know it's gonna drop. But do we want it to drop? No, obviously we don't. But do we want it to fucking finally drop so we don't have to have the anxiety of it not dropping yet? Possibly, maybe a little bit. You know what I'm talking about? Am I talking nonsense right now? Does it feel like it's making sense at all? I feel like I came up with some sort of thing out there, you know? It's like we're all know something's gonna happen soon. We don't know what it is, but we probably don't want it to happen, but we want it to happen because we want to know what the happening is gonna be. You know? It's like, fuck. This entire week has been like that for me. That's why I haven't been on fucking Twitter or whatever. I'm like, there's too much slop. They're all trying to distract us from whatever's gonna happen from from happening or whatever. Not that it's gonna work. Whatever is happening, whatever's supposed to happen is probably not gonna be hideable. But I just feel like everything in this past week has just been slop. That's supposed to be the calm before the storm, That's why I've been just watching older slop, like Veronica Mars. Kind of just because it's like, it was back when TV was just about random shit. It wasn't politically charged. Not to say that TV back then and even Veronica Mars didn't have like propaganda elements to it as well. But it was just kind of like, I feel like the closer we get to World War II, or World War III rather, the more obvious the slop becomes. And that's why I was like, all right, well, I want to have subtle slop, more subtle stuff that I don't have to feel like maybe it's still slop. I don't know. Everything is fucking slop. Sorry, this stream is it's kind of retarded. I'm not gonna lie. What did Doug say today? Well, everything's slop, and he should just get off the internet forever. Oh, God. I don't know. You plan on doing debates? Do you think that's an important part of the dialectic? Well, there's a few things with that. Like assuming that people would even accept me debating them. I feel like I have a little bit of a reputation where people might be like, I don't know about that. I'm not like even that familiar with the whole debate kind of like fucking, I was never fucking debate team person, whatever. But outside of that, it's just also kind of like, what does that even accomplish? Like, no one was ever convinced of something political because of logic, That's the thing I think even most Marxists kind of don't fully understand, if that makes sense. I feel like most Marxists are most real Marxists, I mean, are more autistic coded, where they think, oh, well, this happened in history, and so logically speaking, this is correct, and your position is incorrect. You know, Marxists are supposed to think about things scientifically, right? It's supposed to be like this, well, this happened this, and this happened then, and so X, Y, Z, etc., etc. Dialectical materialism. But I feel like most people, especially people online, they ain't gonna be, they ain't gonna be convinced by facts or whatever. They'll just be like, these are Jew lies or all this other fucking bullshit, or you're just a chink, or you're just a gook. All these fucking ad hominems, And yeah. I debated old Ed a lot, didn't you? I don't know if I'd call that a debate, or rather me just fucking going off. Oh man. I just I don't know. I think like the thing about debates, especially online, it's just like who even watches those things? Nobody watches those things except for fans of those debaters, right? So the fans of those debaters, the person, that debater, he's not going to want to bring on someone that's going to fucking destroy him. So that's why I'm probably never going to get on a lot of those debate things anyway. But on the other side, like, that's the thing too. That person's audience is already going to be primed to be like, all this other stuff. But yeah, I'll fight people. I'll fight people literally. Fight them fucking heads up. Let's go. Let's play heads up for... I'll fight them in any sort of fucking manner that they want. Want to go... go fucking... maybe not if they're already good at something and then I have to fucking compete with them. But if they're like talking about like let's fucking fight, I mean okay. I mean if you really want to do that, we can do that, right? I mean, what is that going to do for me, your average comma? It's like Radio Korea. What is that even worth? What is Radio Korea even worth? I mean, it's a fucking radio station. It's fucking radio station. First of all, let's think about that conceptually. Radio station, I mean, we already have TV, starting from the 1950s and 1960s. For 70 years, they've had a decent competition. And then 30 years later, they had more competition from something called the internet. I believe that if my calculations serve correct, that, let's say, Radio Korea's listenership are from boomers who are probably born in the 1950s to maybe the 1970s, if we're being generous. Maybe some Gen X is in there, right? That's the majority of their people. People who are in their 50s to 70s, maybe a little older, 50s to 80s, in Koreatown. Let's do the math, right? Say there's 300,000. Let's just even give it more, right? 500,000 Korean Americans in the SoCal area, right? Probably even being too generous with that. But what percent is that in that 50 to 70 region, right? 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 50 to I mean, well, let's say maybe 30%, 40%. Okay, let's say it's 40%, 200K people. And how many people of those people even fucking still listen to the radio? You know, there's a lot of tech savvy Korean Americans these days. And where do they get their fucking content from? Like, it's like, this is like Radio Korea. And you don't have any fucking presence online. You know, somebody tried to help you do that. But, you defamed him. But, whatever. I throw money at you to see you fuck someone up. I should be the anti nuisance streamer, you know? The guy who just hunts nuisance streamers and then streams myself fucking them up like Johnny Somali. I'm the hunter. The hunter, the streamer hunter, the anti nuisance streamer hunter. If you're interested, you can try modern day debates. They're stuck on Islam versus Christianity versus atheism for years now, so I'm begging for something different. Well, what is even that format? They like allow anyone to come in and be like, I want to debate communism. Why is communism great and why does capitalism suck? If I recall correctly, domestic government, U.S. is told to be prepared for 5,000 casualty event to get us into the next war on terror. That might drop soonish. Great. I feel like that might backfire, though. I feel like if there was actually another 9/11, and it was like, you guys remember like everyone and their mother is kind of like, yeah, this Iranian feminist bullshit is fucking bull. Like everyone's like, you know, obviously we as Asian American dudes seeing WMAF mind virus voids say their shit all the time. We're like, yeah, we know what this is, right? We all know what the fucking Iranian Floyd coming out and being like, oh, look at how free we are from the oppressive Iranian men, right? We all know that story. Oh, look, we can make ourselves into sluts and, you know, go on to OnlyFans now. Yeah, we know that model. We're very familiar with that model, right? Are you worried that Israel is watching your streams now? I mean, maybe. I mean, I'm not that worried because, like, first of all, like I always say all the time, I only have like 15 to 20 people watching me at most, at any one time, right? I think it's like 15 people total. Actually, that's not 100% true. Something does happen where the lives do get like 200, 300 views. And I'm wondering, is that like people coming in and out or whatever? Or are they watching it after? I think a decent amount of people are actually watching it after. So thank you if you're one of those people. Like, comment, and subscribe if you are. Oh, man. Moderated and scheduled 1v1, basically. I mean, I don't know. Sure. I guess I'll check it out. I just don't feel like debating people is a good use of my time unless I'm already pretty, like, well known. Right? I understand that Haas and, you know, did it back in the day. But that's basically when, you know, nobody knew fucking anything. And I feel like lines are pretty drawn right now where everyone sees Haas as, like, you know, the guy when it comes to Marxism, Leninism, and philosophy around that. So it's just kind of like, When if I ask to debate whatever, people be like, well, why would I debate you instead of Haas or blah blah, and just like whatever, you know. People are watching it but aren't logged in. I mean, that could happen too. I'm just like wondering, what is the number of people that watch it while it's streaming versus afterwards? I feel like the afterwards is more. Surprisingly enough. Surprisingly enough, you know. How's your weed withdrawal? Are you fully recovered? Well, about that. I must admit, this past week, I might have smoking a little bit of the ganja. You know, I'm not proud to say it, but relapse definitely occurred. Kind of fed into my like fucking what's the point, you know? I'm still like 2,000 words into this next Substack I'm writing, and I'm just kind of like, oh god, what's the point? You know? It's like everything is moving so quickly. Like the centuries are happening in a weeks. That it's just kind of like, bruh. All right, stop being so judgmental, okay? It can happen. It can happen. I mean, look, I have you know, whatever. It's just kind of like, as you look back on the look. It's not me being happier. This is me being more distracted. You know, like the reason why I do weed is to like relieve my anxiety and stress, and that's why I kind of got on it during the pandemic. Remember? Well, if it was in China, everything would be much better, and I wouldn't be stressed about the end of reality as we know it. I'd already be in China. I'd be like, all right, we're good here, guys. We did it. We're done. Exactly, Wi-Fi. You got me. That's my nigga right there. Alright? All you motherfuckers. Judgmental motherfuckers. Fucking judging me? Judging me? Alright. Well, that's why I'm not an American. See, I can self-criticize too, okay? Yeah, fucked up. What do you want from me? What do you want? What do you want? A fucking robot? You know, fucking AI, Doug AI that just writes fucking content about communism and why it's great all the time? Is that what you want? You want a fucking LLM machine that just generates content that's pro-communism without feeling? Oh man, reminds me, Haas was on prescribed weed. It's prescribed weed. Wait, what? Like prescribed? It was actually prescribed. It's actually funny. Coffeeed up, Doug. What's all CIA ops? Oh. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, that's probably why I didn't do any progress on my Substack for a week. Well, it's only going to be a once a month thing, all right? 1 week per month. That's fine, right? Man, I enjoy like talking on stream because I could say ridiculous shit and then hear myself saying it in real time, be like, yeah, that's fucking retarded. Goynip. Oh, that's actually pretty good. Cattle grass. Yeah, I'm cattle. I'm cattle. Moo. Give me the blue pill. Give me the blue pill, guys. See, this is why I don't think Israel's that concerned about me. They're like, oh yeah, we could just send him a honeypot and some weed and just make him go away. Doug is back. Is this the real Doug? Goy cattle Doug is the real Doug. It's the one that's on the cattle grass. That's a good one. I'm gonna put a cat. So my sister is actually coming tomorrow. And do you remember that shirt where she got me over Christmas? It was like the Kims and like four faces, the Kims. She's bringing me the finished version, the correct version. So I'm getting that tomorrow. And then if I like it a lot, I'm gonna make Yellow Knight versions of it. So y'all better cop that shit. How many should I make? Like, do you think I should make like 25? 25 people would buy it, right? Look at my capitalist brain working. Capitalism. Capitalism everywhere. Man. Alright, XL. I got you. We all have our own slop addictions. I mean, that's the point too, right? You know, I have this friend. I was talking to my friend actually about, you know, the entertainment industry, right? Like even how I don't know. I don't know if you guys it's the same with you guys or not, but I've lost interest not just in like Hollywood, but just like in any sort of entertainment, you know, music or sports or whatever. It just all seems so meaningless, you know? It feels like in the grand scheme of everything that's going on, everything. I don't know if that's just me or if that's me being older or if that's me being too political, you know, or if that's just yeah, do you guys feel like that is going on a little bit? Well, anyway, if you really think about it, like I said before, like what is the culture of America, right? What is the American culture going on? You know, what is it besides making money, right? What is it? And so we created a culture, right? Or capitalists created this culture, this very consumerist culture of Hollywood entertainment, you know, just being entertained all the time. That's kind of replaced religion in a way, right? Instead of worshiping, you know, Jesus or God or Buddha or whatever, people worship celebrities. People worship these famous people on screen, or putting balls in buckets or whatever. The thing that they do is very entertaining, right? And this has become just the culture of America. This is American culture. Like entertainment is American culture. This is our religion. This is what we aspire to be, because in America, after you become rich, what else do you want to be? Well, you want to be seen being rich, right? You can't just be rich and, you know, not have everyone know that you're rich. You got to be balling out. And and I noticed that, like, so I was talking to my friend about this, like how entertainment's no longer fun. So I look to other places. I go to Korean. You know, I've been watching Reply 19. I finished Reply 1988. I've been watching kind of other kind of Korean or whatever content. And and just watching other stuff on YouTube now that I didn't used to watch, more stuff on YouTube rather than whatever. And, you know, and he was telling me how he was getting into basketball for, not that he wasn't into it, but he got more into it, especially with James Harden and this other guy, whatever. And I think what's going on is that people are just finding, right now, we're in the reorientation stage where people who are kind of in this mode that I'm in, of this like black pilled mode, just trying to find any sort of thing that might replace the entertainment machine and give myself more dopamine, I guess, inducing sort of content to make me forget about, you know, what's going on in the world and society, right? It's just like you just like look for anything. You look for anything. I remember like, man, when I was really depressed 5 years ago, I was watching anything and everything, and I remember I had the biggest like I don't give a fuck about this. You know, I was watching Death Note, and I was like, this is kind of whatever. You know, I was trying to watch everything to like, and I kind of realized that American entertainment, the entirety of it, just like entertainment in capitalism, you know, in the past 60, 70, 80 years, you know, most of our time on existence on planet Earth, it's like soulless, you know? And it seems so cliche to say that, right? Like, oh yeah, the corporations selling you content, giving you content and you pay money for it, blah blah blah. And yeah, of course, yeah. Oh, the guy in entertainment finally realizes it's soulless. But what I mean by that is just kind of like in the 1930s, right? That was the Great Depression. And that's when Hollywood actually did thrive because people wanted to forget about the problems. They wanted to forget about the problems for 2 hours, right? And, you know, when I looked into why I got into entertainment myself, right? You know, I would, yeah, a lot of the times it would be to escape my current reality as a unpopular Asian kid in middle school and just act or just be in this story for a couple hours where I wouldn't have to, would be able to forget, right? You'd be forget your own subjectivity, and now you're in this objectivity that everyone else is enjoying, right? And all these other Americans are enjoying. And I feel like, especially in the past 2.5 years since October 7th, I feel like there's been a kind of like an awakening from that. Like the entertainment industry has been a little bit of a matrix itself. And, you know, in that time when I, you know, was really depressed 5 years ago, I think it was just kind of like you looked for anything that could give you meaning, right? You were just like watching everything. I was watching everything on YouTube or Netflix. And I guess I kind of have the same feeling now, you know, in the past week. I've just been like watching all this fucking shit just to be like, there's got to be something in here. There's got to be something in here that makes some sense, that has some meaning. You know, I watched like Brooklyn Nine-Nine, right? And I didn't watch the whole season, but the last season, the first episode talks about BLM, and I'm just kind of like, yeah, this is why this was the last season. Though I guess it's hard to have a liberal comedy about police right after George Floyd. I'm sure that was a hard kind of thing to keep going. And it was the 8th season, so it's fine. But I could kind of see it, just like there are these things that I feel like I was so invested in like the 2010s, right? Brooklyn Nine-Nine was one of my favorite shows. But then like I just felt like, oh man, this is not aged well. This is all fucking slop. You know? Just feel like everything is fucking slop, and I just don't know how to escape the slop fest. Like everyone is fucking lying to themselves. You know? That's the most pathetic part about all this stuff. Like the most pathetic part about all this stuff is those Iranian feminists. Like most of them are probably fucking like Mossad agents or whatever, and probably fake. But even assuming that there even is like a real Iranian feminist, it's like, how stupid do you have to be to think that you're coming off well to the rest of the world who's just like witnessing, you know, a genocide for 2.5 years, right? How stupid do you have to be to think that you come across off well? How brainwashed must you be? How much Roger Clemens must you be? You know, it's like people believe in their own lie. They're like lying to themselves, saying like, "This is fine. This is good." You know, that's what the boomers were saying. That's why the boomers are still in fucking this land where they have so much cognitive dissonance from doing terrible shit for so long that they can't even like conceive that what they did was possibly not a good idea. Like with this Iran fucking thing, it was just kind of like the plan. You know what their plan was? Their plan was kill the main guy, and that'll start a revolution, and the Iranian people will revolt, and that's the end of that. That was their plan. This is how fucking retarded the people in power are. It's just kind of like, you know, it's about burgers. What is about burgers? I don't even know what movie they are showing in cinemas for years now. Yeah, I don't really know either. Capitalism with Chinese characteristics still need my video games. Thoughts on the documentary format? What about the documentary format for what? Bourgeois culture. I look forward to the Goyim Hunger Games decided by our Palantir AI designated kill score. It's going to be bigger than Regis and Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. Big pimping, spend the cheese. Hello, Douglas. Hello, Road to Hell 46. I don't think I know you, but welcome. They'll revitalize Hollywood and LA as a game board. The Great Reset mode. Watched nearly 700 American films personally, and it mounted to average rating of 4 to 5 out of 10. Yeah. Ganja is the way to escape the slop. Well, ganja is the slop, my friend. It's cattle grass. Goy cattle grass. The only way out is through. Years of nepotism and circle jerking made American elites retarded. Slop accelerationism. May I ask Kim Chil Sung on how many films you have watched in your life? I have watched just over 1,000 films. Well, I probably watched 1,000 films, just not 1,000 different ones. I don't know. I don't have a letterboxd or account or anything like that, so I couldn't tell you. But I can tell you I've probably watched a fair amount of films. Mostly from recent times. But it's just that too, right? Like most films suck. Most entertainment really does suck. People are like, "Oh man, it used to be so great back in the day." Blah, blah, blah. It's like it used to suck back then too. Actually, the only reason is that like there's a few things that were good every year, and that's what people remember, right? They don't remember like the duds and the shit that was made that didn't fucking take off in it or anything. What you need is a good fight. Are you Nietzsche now? I need a good combatant to fight. That's the thing, like I feel like there's no one to fight, you know? I feel like there's it's designed that way, especially in America, you know. The Asian man is already considered incorrect. It's already at the base layer considered incorrect. Or at best they're parroting an enlightened white man. At worst, they're a CCP agent, or they're a blah blah blah, or they're a liar, or blah blah blah, cheater, etc. 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 And that's generally how it is with Asian men in the political thing. We're just simply like considered a non-factor. I mean, take fucking Andrew Yang, right? So pathetic how he keeps fucking tweeting shit. Like you just are fucking like this is the guy that was like the most famous fucking Asian American dude in politics. And he fucking like just fucking self-cucks himself every which way possible. Not surprising since he's Taiwanese, but still, you know. Well, that's the thing. The people, even the alt people, the alternative, whatever, these were all fucking incubated by the CIA too. Your Tucker Carlsons, your Candace Owens, your fucking Nick Fuenteses, all these other people, they're either directly or indirectly funded by the feds. Any person who has a fucking platform, and they're not going to be motivated. They already know that, giving anyone like me, the time of day is not good for their platform. So they avoid me. Because to them, it's also like, what have I done that proves that I have any clout or say with any faction of the American government? I've done nothing, right? You know, I don't even have the Asian American buy-in. I don't have the Asian American diaspora, mostly because most of them are, you know, goy cucked. But I don't know. I mean, trust me, I'm not ducking anyone. If somebody wants to fucking challenge me, I have never ducked anyone. I've never fucking ducked a fight in my life. You know? See, of all my fucking critics online, all the people who hate on me online, not one of them has been like, let's debate one-on-one on this thing that we're disagreeing about. Let's do it publicly. Not a single one. You know, I've had a lot of haters. You know, a lot of haters with hundreds of thousands of followers, 100K followers plus on Twitter that have banned me, that have fucking, you know, yeah, blocked me, etc., etc. Not one of them has ever been like, I don't like Doug because he's not saying the truth. You know? Yeah, I'm still moving to New York City, D. Wallace. What do you think of Kristi Noem getting fired after having sex with her aide while they are both married? Who's Kristi Noem again? Wait, she got fired? Wasn't she the one that was like pointing her machine gun at that guy in that video, and he was like, can you not do that? Well, I mean, what is Kristi Noem's getting fired gonna really even do? They're just gonna replace her with another fucking jackhole. You know. Killed what puppy? She killed the puppy? Why did she kill a puppy? Tucker nor Candace will ever interview Jackson Hinkle. I think Tucker did interview Jackson Hinkle, though, right? But that was like back when he was on Fox, I believe. Anyway, I don't know where I'm going with this, but I feel like I ate some Wingstop and I'm getting some heartburn. You know, I feel like every government official, probably they have stuff on every one of them, and whenever they want them fired or not fired, they just have like, oh, well, we have this tape. Let's get Kristi Noem out of here. She had sex with her aide. Probably the aide was like a Mossad agent, you know? Just like, hey, let's have sex. Oh, wait, you're not doing what we want you to do, or your embarrassment, or you suck at your job. Now you're out. She wrote that she shot and killed her 14th-month wire-haired point. Why would she do that? Wait, she was South Dakota governor at first. Untrainable, dangerous, and less than worthless as a hunting dog. Shot at writing. It was not a pleasant job, but it had to be done. Well, whatever. I mean, I don't know. Honeypot aid. It's all eights. Everyone's eights. Everyone has eights. Everyone is slop. Everyone is goy slop. Everyone is degenerate. You know, that's what I was thinking, actually. That's what I was like. Remember earlier when I was like, um, Americans can't fathom a world where, let alone they're not on top, but a world where they're not driving the action in the world. Because if you think about it, let's say there's like a communist revolution in America, right? And I kind of alluded to this last time. But let's say there's a communist revolution in America. Like, who do you imagine are the leaders of this communist revolution? Do you think it's a bunch of white people? Do you think it's a bunch of identity politics white people? Do you think it's a bunch of multicultural liberals that support the American military? Like, who do you think, like, picture that. Like, who do you think is even leading this fucking imaginary revolution? And if you think about it, it's just kind of like in every permutation of the world in 2100, there's no permutation where America comes up on top and, the leaders. There's two possible permutations, really. It's that America falls somewhat peacefully and China kind of like takes over the reins and fixes everything, and we sort of get to a communist sort of world, probably by 2200. The other thing is the other route is if America's and its leaders decide to be a bunch of pieces of shit and take the rest of the world down with America as it fucking can no longer sustain its parasitic kind of like relation with the rest of the world. Those are the two outcomes. And, I've been saying this kind of like for the past few months, I guess, but like maybe American Marxists have to kind of like reevaluate what's even possible at this point. It's like, are we trying to actually, there are a few ways of looking at it, right? You can either look at it like it's Russia, right? In 1905 or before the October Revolution, right? So before the October Revolution, Russia was one of many kind of imperialist powers. There was Britain, France, Germany, Austria, Hungary, etc., etc. So that was a situation back with Russia back then, and it just lost an imperialist war against Japan in 1905. And so Russia was already showing signs of inability to maintain itself. But it required a world war for the conditions inside to get bad enough for a revolution to come. And that was, Lenin saw that and kind of like was like, well, we can't do anything until something big happens. So we got to just keep educating the people, blah, 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 whatever. So if I'm thinking about it like that, like it was a couple months ago, then yeah, it's just like keep on educating people, whatever, etc., etc. But then there's a possibility that America may not have a voluntary, willing revolution, right? Because that was the case of Germany after World War One, right? There was a time where in 1918 to 1919, there was a chance it could have gone communist as well. It was just that, there was enough nationalist forces and enough of that within the Germany for the bourgeoisie to kind of like organize and kill Rosa Luxemburg and all those other people. So that didn't happen. But I see America. Some people think the America resembles Lenin or Russia in 1905, blah blah blah. But I'm thinking Russia. I mean, America kind of resembles, at least on a cultural or spiritual level, it resembles more the Weimar Republic. Where there was still a chance it could have gone communist if certain things went the right way. And if kind of like people understood what was going on. But the fate of Germany at that point, it could have gone either way. It could have gotten fascism or communism, especially after 1929. But it did go into fascism, right? So it might just be an inevitability, like the sands of history or the winds of history. Like there might be an outcome where we descend just into Nazi America, like literal Nazi. I'm not, obviously I'm hyperbole. I say this all the time. We already are, and in some ways we are, but like in a full on fascist fucking Palantir has, free reign to like kill anyone they want in the West with a push of a button. They could just drone strike you and you're dead. Alex Karp just, deletes you from his computer. Obviously we're not there yet. We're kind of trending in that direction, but that is indeed a possibility, and it might just take like a final showdown between China and America to really change the world. And so, I feel like most people, obviously optimistic people, they want to believe that the first option is true, right? They want to believe that we're going to wake up, enough Americans are going to wake up, we're going to stop this from happening, and we're going to realize that communism is a truth, and we're going to take back the power and blah blah blah. But then really, the other possibility does exist as well, where we just descend into fascism and the American government and the CIA uses everything it can to basically put enough fear into people of immigrants or whatever the case may be, that they see that the only solution is to band together and kill everyone. I feel like not enough Americans realize, like not even leftists, American leftists, really fully understand that is a real possibility. Like I feel like American leftists still at the end of the day are like, we're gonna figure it out. We're gonna something's gonna happen, and we're gonna come to our senses, and this isn't the America we are. The America we are is essentially still good, like even though we were capitalists for the longest time, and even though that was our government doing all those things, okay, like we didn't have a choice. But now that we're all awoken, we're all woke, we all know it's kind of what's going on now. If we just say some fucking phrase like a la Cosmos Xi Jinping or some shit over and over again, then we're all gonna wake up I'm like, I think having dreams are fine. Having goals are good. But I think like any American, not just Asian Americans, but Asian Americans in particular, but any American I feel like should be like, you know what? I need to figure out what's the optimal course now for me and my family. Cause like I'm just like, what is the point? What is the point of trying to help people who cannot help themselves, right? That was like that's like what I was talking about last time, why China wasn't helping Iran, why China wasn't helping Venezuela, right? Well, first of all, they don't have an official military pact, right? So China has no obligation to help either of those places. They have just trade agreements. It's not like a military pact. But second of all, what do we say about those places? You know, Venezuela, they got Maduro like almost immediately. Same with Syria, right? Syria kind of like Assad kind of like just bowed out. And even in Iran, they got like 40 guys, 40 top guys. Maybe that it was bait. Maybe it was exactly for this. They knew that Iran wasn't going to fold, and it would strengthen their cause, perhaps, or whatever. But when you're China looking at that, you're like, well, it's clear that they have at least some sort of CIA slash Mossad penetration that is going on there. And when people look at America, like the same Chinese people look at America, they're just kind of like, yeah, most of you guys are still retarded. You know? I don't know. I think, I think I myself had this optimistic gung ho feeling about communism in America, being like, all right, enough bullshit's happened. You know, the COVID, all this anti-Asian hate stuff. You know, this fucking Russian SMO being bullshit. Israel being bullshit. Epstein files being bullshit. There's so much bullshit now. Like if you're not at least like thinking about being a communist, you're probably retarded. And it's just kind of like, man, there's just it's just willful retardation, I guess. It's just you know. So that's why I say, like, I feel like I'm repeating myself over and over again. Maybe it's just because this past year has just been a lot of events of crazy. Like, yeah, we expected 2026 to be crazier, every year to be crazier than the one before that. Since the 2020s began, it's par for the course. Everyone's like, oh yeah, more craziness, like even more craziness, right? And so it's not like it's unexpected, but there's a difference between like knowing the path and walking the path, right? When you walk through this shit, you're just like, you're holding out some hope for like, oh, well, maybe this is gonna be the thing that wakes people up, or like, no, they just find another sort of cognitive dissonance sort of thing to meander about. Because the thing that most people don't want to admit, people do not want to admit that they were wrong, right? So many people in America, their entire worldview is predicated on the idea on this myth, right? This foundational American myth that any of our successes is because of our ingenuity, because of our freedom, because of our own self-worth. We generated it. And anyone else that's trying to trample on that idea is just jealous, and they're just sour grapes and blah, 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 right? That's like most American mentality. So when you tell them, hey, you're kind of the Nazis, you're kind of the bad guys, and not only that, the reason why you're rich and everything is because you were the bad guys. You know, this is like kind of like not only it's like against their religion, you see, because they built this, like I said before, this Hollywood thing, this American exceptionalism. This is a religion now. This has become something that they worship. This idea that they're being an American, their identity in being an American is why they have power, why they are good, why they are, you know, why they have meaning even, right? Why their lives have more meaning than perhaps a child in Gaza who's going to die when they're like, whatever. Their life doesn't matter compared to mine because I'm an American and we get things done here. You know? To like just go against that is just like so much cognitive dissonance at the average American. I don't know. Obviously, being an American, living here, obviously I don't want the fate of America to be a self-implosion in order for it to, you know, learn from its mistakes and stop being a Nazi country. Obviously, that's, you know, me living here. I don't want that to be, but maybe if we're being real, you know, like I said before, the War of 1812 was the last time this country really faced an existential threat, right? That was before any of us were born. That was 214 years ago, right? What does anyone in this country know about sacrifice or patriotism? It's like, nah. Everyone came here to make money. You know, there might be stupid people, right, that don't understand that. That's fine. They existed back then, blah, blah, blah. They bought into the American dream and whatever propaganda back then. That's fine. But in 2026, to still believe in that bullshit nonsense, it's like maybe the only solution is a negative dialectic, right? Spare the rod, spoil the child, right? That's what the Bible says. Maybe the only way America will learn is by someone speaking its own language, right? Fuck around, find out. And it's funny because, like, the biggest events of that were probably caused by the CIA. You know, 9/11, JFK, the moments when we as a country felt like we were being attacked by external factors. That was probably came from within. That's the irony. But for very true change, maybe it's America getting its ass fucking kicked. I don't know if that's going to happen in Iran. Maybe it will. Maybe it won't. But, you know, I feel like most Americans are just still in this, like, la-la land. This Roger Clemens land of, like, as long as we keep denying things, things will be fine, right? For Roger Clemens, I'm sure things are somewhat fine. You know, I'm sure there's a part of him that that doesn't even believe he was rejected from. There's probably a part of him that's like still, you know, probably thinks he's in the Hall of Fame and like, oh yeah, that was. He probably like tells people, yeah, no, I'm in the Hall of Fame. That's just a, I don't know what they're doing. You know, it's just like he's probably like lied to himself so effectively that he thinks he's in the Hall of Fame now, right? I feel like most Americans are like that because that's the way they were trained to be. You know, just deny, deny, deny. Everything will be fine. Just sweep it on the rug. The next generation will handle it. Blah blah blah. That's the fucking American way. And we've come to a point where we can no longer sweep things under the rug like that for the next generation to, you know, like that was the whole thing. You know, like when I was like, you know, in middle school, I was like, wait, where's all this garbage going? Isn't this garbage gonna pile up like infinitely? Like if we keep doing this, doesn't this have to? It's like, oh, that's for the next generation to figure out. You know, that's the American way. It's to just be like, not my problem, whatever. But we're coming to a point now where all the problems are coming in all at once. It used to be, problem of the economic stuff. You know, that was the Great Depression and all that stuff. It used to be like a war. You know, that was World War II and all this other stuff. It used to be, you know, all these other political movements that were going on. But we're going to get them all at once now. We're going to get the fucking $37 trillion debt. We're going to get all the fucking doomerism credit card stuff that's going on. The fucking real estate bubble that's worse than 2008. The fucking inflation that's out of control. The war that we keep printing money for to fucking pay for. Nobody even talks about the money aspect anymore. It's just like, did we forget that this costs a shit ton of money? And then fucking like America and Israel running out of fucking munitions for their air defense. And it's just like, this is all unsustainable. This is like any third party that's not an American, not even Chinese, not whatever. If you were a third party alien, you saw like just by the fucking numbers alone, the situation here, you'd be like, this is bad. Ronnie Chang even jokes he's have to stack his bread with his Netflix comedy trilogy and retire in a LCOL city. What's LCOL call? Local? Abroad? DXY down, CPI up. Tail end of bond yield are untethered. Japanese yen strengthening, dollar weakening. Yen carry trade broken. America, everyone just wants to buy stuff. You think this war will be as long as the Iraq War? How long was the Iraq War? Was that? Nine years. 9 years. I don't think it'll be as long as the Iraq War. Because I think we just don't even have enough to make a long war happen. I mean, I think everyone thinks Iran is going to win. But what does that even fucking look like? Oh, God. Is it true that this recent move puts pressure on China? For example, people are quoting energy reserves of 100 days. Energy reserves? What do you mean energy reserves? China has no pressure at all whatsoever. China has, It only depends on them for like what, 11, 15% of their oil at most, maybe. China's fine. They might be thinking about things, and they're probably helping Iran behind the scenes, not just like just like China helped Vietnam, right, for the longest time. They denied at the time that they had specialists in Vietnam, but it just came out like a year ago that Chinese people, the PLA, was involved in Vietnam. So that's the thing about geopolitics too. It's just kind of like these countries know that they can't play their hand face up, right? So whatever is getting reported is whatever, the Goy slot machine wants you to see and hear. And so that's how I look at anything that tells me, is it true that this recent move puts the pressure on China? Like, who is that coming from? Is it coming from a Western analyst? Because if it's coming from a Western analyst, then it's probably not true. It's probably something that they want you to think is true. Or not that it's not true or false. It's just that it's something that's posited to be true for a specific purpose. India 50%, Korea 62%, 72% Gulf oil. India. You see that stupid thing from the American, I forgot what it was. I think it was like their commerce department or whatever, said that like we can't give India the same treatment we gave China to help them develop or whatever, or some bullshit or whatever. And yeah, I'm like, everyone's like, well, if that was the case, then why isn't India doing well right now? Did they somehow lose those special treatment that they got? China gets 40% of oil from Middle East, not 50%. Yeah. Somebody from my Twitch wrote the Yellow Knight, but then change yellow to Roaring Knight. Delta Rune. Oh dear. I don't even know what that means. Anyway, sorry, I've been all over the place this stream. I don't even know what I want to talk about, really. Just kind of like overall black pill. This has been a black pill stream. I know, I'm sorry. I try not to be black pilled sometimes, but sometimes it's just, there's just too much to be black pilled about, you know what I mean? I guess all this to say, though, for any, American, I feel like last week or last time I talked about what is to be done, right? Like what can I do as an American, blah blah blah, whatever. I think at this point, it's as an American, acknowledge why you're here, right? Unless you're a slave or a descendant of a slave or a Native American, you came here for money, right? That's what you came here for, right? That's what this country is. And then be like, hey, let me educate myself about that, right? Let me learn about that shit. Let me not just consume all this fucking goy slop and doom scroll about how Hitler was right and all this fucking nonsense bullshit on Twitter or Instagram or whatever. All this goy cattle Nazi shit. Or this goy cattle Islamist shit that says the same shit too. Or the goy cattle fucking Trotskyite shit that says saying goy, calling yourself goyim is anti-Semitic. Well, that's all goy cattle shit too. You know, first step is take yourself out of the goy slop matrix. Acknowledge why you're really here. And be like, do I really want to, if it's not important enough to care about, right? Maybe you're like, you know what? Maybe this will blow over, blah, blah, blah. This will be the average person's reaction to all of this, right? They're going to be like, okay, well, nothing I can do about it, right? Blah, blah, blah. And then just kind of live on. But for those of you who are more conscientious, I guess, like myself, I guess, or whatever, you can be like, all right, I acknowledge those things. I'm getting educated, blah, blah, blah. But on the other hand, too, if push comes to shove and I'm forced to, hopefully I can try to educate and push people more to a revolution if that's happening. But if that's not happening, I also got to think about what's best for me. I don't owe this fucking country shit. All right. No one owes this country shit. I'm sorry. That's just not a fucking thing. No one fucking owes this country anything more than what, I guess, is demanded from you as a citizen with this laws, right? All that's demanded of you is that you follow the fucking laws, right, of this country. Like all this talk about, oh, this country did so much for you, blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera. No, it didn't. It did all that shit for itself. And anyone who came here understood that that was what was going on here, right? That this is a place where you make shit for yourself, make money for yourself. Like, nobody fucking came here for, like, freedom or democracy or this all fucking bullshit. No one owes anyone shit in this country. Exactly. We already paid enough in taxes. So, if your other prerogative as American is to get the fuck out and move to a safe country, and a country that actually cares about it's like, if you want to move to Asia, then go fucking right ahead. See the writing on the wall, and you're like, well, I'm not fucking dying for America. I'm not trying to, foment a revolution here. I do not blame you one fucking bit. It's just like, maybe that's what the world needs. Like, maybe America can only learn from a negative dialectic, right? From losing. From taking the L. From taking the L from Iran or whoever it is. I don't know. Because that's the last time we were even close to a communist revolution. 1970s, like I said last time. The last time we were even close to a communist revolution was when we were taking massive L's in Vietnam. We were looking like total fucking... Not only were we taking L's, like, militarily, we looked like total psychopaths. Like, the soldiers that came back, they would just, like, be interviewed and they'd be total fucking psychopaths. The rest of the world would see this. We were losing militarily. We were losing the moral high ground. We were losing everything. We were losing lots of money, too, because it fucking costs a shit ton of money to fucking napalm everything. It took that much L-taking for people to even consider communism in this country. And so maybe that's just the thing. Like, people thought, 2020, COVID, all this other stuff, people would wake up. I was one of those people, right? When COVID happened, I was like, finally, people are going to wake up see that this government is corrupt. It's a piece of shit government. We're going to rise up. 2020, 6 years ago, I was like, it might be a little rocky at first, but we're going to get there. Everyone's going to realize how fucking corrupt our government is. I was one of those wide-eyed people. Now I'm like, you know what? Americans are just too invested in the smell of their own farts. They're too invested in the American exceptionalist idea being true. Because if it's not true, that means that not only is their life like meaningless, because they did all these things to chase all these material things that doesn't really satisfy them, but they treat them as satisfying because what else is there once you're at that? But not only is that worthless and meaningless, it's also the source of the evil in this world. So not only are you meaningless, you're less than meaningless. You're actually a source for the evil in this world. You know? I think most people in America, whether they're Christian or not, still believe in that kind of myth, the American foundational myth, that we were Puritans. We came here to spread Christianity, right? To spread the good news of the Lord, good news of Jesus Christ and the gospel. And while we may not literally do that anymore, right? Obviously, separation of church and state and all this other stuff. A lot of the American kind of mythos is still based in that, like, we're morally righteous, and the things that we do, even there was even a fucking contingency in America. I think Teddy Roosevelt was kind of part of this, but like, they saw themselves kind of as like an Israel, like in the land of Canaan, and this was like the promised land that was promised to the white race, and these Indian people, they were like the Canaanites that needed to get God. That's how a lot of Americans saw this shit, like 150 years ago, like Teddy Roosevelt. And when you have like a mythos like that, when you have kind of like a nationalist, socialist idea like that, because in a lot of ways America is nationalist, socialist, right? It's just not socialist in the way that we know, right? It's not communist. It's socialist for the bankers. I've been reading some of this. I think some of you've been telling me to read this. I've been reading a little bit of this. And what's socialized is the losses to the banker. It's like reverse communism, actually. Like nationalism, socialism. It's not just capitalism. It's like reverse communism where the people pay for the bankers. Do you guys like understand how retarded the Federal Reserve is? It's just like this retarded reverse communism fucking corrupt piece of shit thing. We're the baddies. Or rather, the baddies have been here the entire time, and we've just been winning fucking Fall For It Again awards the entire fucking time. Anyway. Are there any Korean diaspora who are exploring long-term stays in North Korea or non-US LIO countries? I don't know what LIO means. I would say not if they're American. I think there's like a couple million Koreans in China, but I think they're fine living in China. But I think there's a fair amount of Chinese Koreans that kind of travel across the border as well. It's kind of like the way I hear about it, it's more like Mexico and America. It's not that heavily guarded like the 30th parallel. 30th parallel DMZ is like all fucking, military shit. But I heard that the border between North Korea and China, I mean, they're allies, right? It's not as heavily guarded. You can kind of like go in and out pretty easily if you're from that area. Not that most people do like just travel without a fucking visa or whatever, but ostensibly if you really wanted to go without like, going through the customs and all that stuff, there are ways to do that. So North Korea is kind of like their Mexico a little bit in that regard. So China took a lot of L's before a revolution. Exactly. Right? It's not out of the question to think like, hey, maybe America needs to take a few L's. Maybe that needs to happen before any revolution happened. Like, there's never been a revolution. Like, there's, even the American Revolution, even the French Revolution, there was a lot of fucking bloodshed. It wasn't a clean thing. It wasn't like George Washington and those homies. They woke up one day, was like, all right, England, get the fuck out, and it happened. The Revolutionary War was like, what, 75 to like 86, something like that. 10 years. What was the Revolutionary War? 1775, 1883. So 8 years. 8 years of war. And the French Revolution had all its other stuff. October Revolution, obviously. Civil War that came afterwards. Millions died. Civil War. One could say that's a revolution. The civil rights movement, that was like, people say, oh yeah, look, it was like a peaceful time when, there were some like police brutality and anti-black racism during this, but for the most part, not that many people died. And so like, yeah, well, a lot of people died in Vietnam to make that happen. Like every revolution is made off the backs of some sort of violence. So the way I see it in America, I mean, it's just like, it's like one of those Pez dispensers, right? When you keep putting Pez in, or even like a bullet, like one of those magazines where you put the bullets in. The first few bullets, it's pretty easy to put in, but like by the end, it's like you're kind of like struggling to get those last ones in there, because like the spring is like now really pushing back at you. I feel like America, its whole fucking policy of like, let the next generation decide, take care of it. I feel like that's what is going to happen now, For the longest time, we've put off shit by just like printing more money or going to war or doing some shit, blah, 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 that fixes it in the short term. But, yeah, it's going to fucking blow up. And that's why I feel like people are not, we're like all frogs in boiling water, because like the water for most of our lives has not even been hot. It's been pretty chill. It's been pretty cool for most of our lives. But now it's like, you know, they're ramping this shit up really quickly. And yeah, it's going to be fucking boiling very soon. But since we're not even used to boiling, we don't even know what's fucking going on. We're like, what is happening? Sweet, come visit Heilongjiang and Harbin. I actually know somebody who knows the Harbin Unit 731 person, so I'm going to probably hit that up at some point in my life. Getting a lower mortgage rate to buy a home through a lower federal interest rate will result in U.S. intervention to circulate dollar back to America. Yeah. China invades Taiwan. Well, we have to worry about Iran, Colombia, and Mexico. I don't think China will invade Taiwan. I just think it'll just be like, is that what you want? You want to be Ukraine? You want to be another Israel? You want to be another... I don't know. Alrighty, I'm gonna take off. I don't think I'm making much sense right now, but unless anyone has any more questions. Alrighty then. I will see you guys on Sunday. Hopefully I'll have got enough motivation to finally fucking finish my Substack so I can write another Substack and keep writing. Alright, later.